The human brain is an incredible pattern detecting machine. It's what helped our ancestors spot danger in the grass or find meaning in the stars. It's the reason we recognize a friend's face in a crowd or a wolf hiding in the shadows. Across history, our species has made a pastime of making sense of the unknown, giving reason to the reasonless. That a landmark of nature or a construct of man, secrets loom around every corner. But where do we draw the line between fact or fiction? What separates the byproduct of human inclination from what could possibly be a stroke on the canvas of a much grander design? There are lines, so they say, that stretch across the land. Invisible threads running beneath mountains and fields, connecting sacred sites like beads on a cosmic necklace. Mont Saint-Michel, Stonehenge, Glastonbury, they all form a pattern, and that pattern, some believe, is no accident. What if it's all just a story we're telling ourselves? What if the real mystery isn't in the earth, but in how we choose to perceive things? Before we walk the line, let's talk about the subject of this video, ley lines. The idea was first popularized in the 1920s by an amateur archaeologist named Alfred Watkins, who noticed that ancient sites across the English countryside, stone circles, burial mounds, hilltop churches, seemed to line up in straight paths when plotted on a map. He called them leys, old tracks, spiritual roads hidden in plain sight. But over time, the idea evolved. Today, ley lines are believed to be something more than just alignments. They're said to be channels of energy, invisible pathways of power running through the earth, connecting sacred places across continents. Temples, pyramids, standing stones, shrines, connected not by chance, but by design. To believers, these lines weren't just used for travel or trade. They were intentional, spiritual, energetic, highways of meaning, veins of the earth. To skeptics, they're just lines on a map drawn between a few convenient dots. But what if the truth, like the lines themselves, runs somewhere in between? They say the Archangel Michael drew a line across the earth, a sword slice of light and purpose. That line passes through some of the most sacred, mysterious, and battle-charged sites in Western history. Coincidence? Divine design? Or something else? Let's walk this line. We begin on a jagged rock 12 kilometers off the Irish coast, Skellig Michael. Rising nearly 700 feet above sea level, it's a place battered by Atlantic winds and time itself. Here, in the 6th century, Celtic Christian monks built a monastery in utter isolation. Stone beehive huts, staircases carved from rock, and oratories dot the steep terrain, entirely constructed by hand. But why? To escape the world. To seek closeness to God in hardship and silence. Perhaps to honor the Archangel Michael, patron of warriors and seekers. Today, it feels like a liminal place, not quite of this world, a lighthouse of stone at the edge of existence. Next, the line crosses the Celtic Sea and lands in Cornwall in England, at St. Michael's Mount, a tidal island just like its French cousin, Mont Saint-Michel. In 495 AD, legend holds that the Archangel appeared to fishermen atop this mount, guiding them to safety from the sea and urging the construction of a church in his honor. Since then, a monastery was founded, then fortified by medieval abbots and noble families. Pilgrims would wade across the tidal causeway at low tide, barefoot, chanting prayers to the dragon slayer in the sky. The mount's silhouette against the sunrise remains a haunting echo of faith. Now the line cuts through the mist and lands in Normandy, at the legendary Mont Saint-Michel. Here, faith and folklore rise from the sea like a vision. According to medieval legend, the Archangel Michael appeared in dreams to Bishop Aubert of Avranches in 708, commanding him to build a sanctuary on the rock. The bishop ignored the first two visions until Michael returned a third time and burned a hole in Aubert's skull with his finger. Suffice to say, Bishop Aubert listened. That skull, scorched and holy, is still on display. But there's more to this place than visionary threats. According to a 9th century Latin manuscript, Mont Saint-Michel was not just a place for the Archangel. It was the site of his cosmic triumph. It is said that this is where Michael defeated Satan himself, casting him down from the heavens in a blaze of divine fire. The mount then becomes not just sacred, but victorious, a fortress of light standing eternally above the rising and falling tide. As the abbey grew, so did its legend. Monks, pilgrims, and kings all drawn to the towering rock, a stairway to heaven built stone by stone. Its spiral architecture rises in a sacred geometry, a physical ascent from the earthly world to the divine, culminating in the golden statue of Michael, sword raised, standing guard against the forces of darkness. A protector, a warrior, a conqueror of dragons and devils. And even now, when the tides rush in and swallow the causeway, the mount seems to stand alone, hovering between earth and sky, sea and spirit. In the Alps near Turin, perched on Mount Picciano, is the Sacra di San Michele. Stone upon stone, this abbey clings to the cliffs like a fortress of faith. Built in the 10th century, the mountain was believed to be sacred long before Christianity, possibly an ancient site of pagan worship. It was the cult of Saint Michael that transformed it. For centuries, this became a waypoint for pilgrims on the Via Francigena, an ancient route to Rome. They paused here, under Michael's protection, before braving the dangerous crossing of the Alps. Its strategic location, both geographically and symbolically, makes it one of the great hinges of this invisible line. Further south, near the heel of Italy's boot, we reach the sanctuary of Mont Saint-Michel. In 490 AD, a nobleman chasing a lost bull stumbled into a cave on Mount Gargano. There, the Archangel Michael appeared and called dibs, claiming the cave as his own. It became one of the earliest and most enduring centers of Michaelic worship in Europe. Unlike other churches, the sanctuary is built into the mountain. You descend into it, into the earth, into mystery. A sacred underground, charged with the presence of something otherworldly. This site attracted pilgrims, popes, knights, and emperors. It became a sacred waypoint for crusaders journeying toward the Holy Land. Then, over the Ionian and Aegean seas, the line touches Simi, a Greek island in the Dodecanese. Though small, Simi pulses with devotion to the Archangel. Over 11 churches are dedicated to him here, but none more famous than the monastery of Penulmatus. Built in the 18th century, it houses a colossal silver icon of Michael, said to be miraculous, moving by itself, granting protection to sailors and soldiers. Locals say the Archangel still patrols these waters, guarding against evil. Michael here is no distant saint. He is family, protector, patron, and warrior of the sea. On his way toward the east, the line slices through Delphi, once believed to be the navel of the world. Here, the Pythia, the oracle priestess of Apollo, uttered her prophecies in cryptic riddles. The site was chosen because of its sacred geography, fissures in the earth, magnetic energy, and perhaps something else. That this ancient spiritual epicenter sits along the same line as a string of Michaelic strongholds adds a layer of eerie synchronicity. A pagan pole of prophecy intersecting a Christian axis of divine warfare. What are we looking at here? A spiritual longitude? A battlefront between gods, old and new? Finally, the line comes to rest in the Holy Land, on Mount Carmel at the Stella Maris Monastery. The name means Star of the Sea, and the monastery sits above the fabled cave of Elijah, the prophet who called down fire from heaven and ascended in a chariot of flame. Though dedicated to the Virgin Mary, this site radiates with angelic symbolism. Mary, often titled the Queen of Angels, is frequently paired with Michael, the guardian and warrior of heaven. And this spot, near the port of Haifa, marks an entrance to the land of prophecy, messiahs, and apocalypse. Just inland lies Megiddo, or as the Book of Revelation names it, Armageddon. Here, scripture tells us Michael will lead the armies of heaven against the forces of darkness in the final battle. The line that begins on an Irish rock ends in prophecy. From Skellig to Simi, from dragons to angels, from the edge of the known world to the doorway of the end of days. It's not just Mont Saint-Michel. Once you start looking, you start seeing lines everywhere. Straight lines crisscrossing continents, linking ancient wonders like constellations on a forgotten atlas. The Inca called them Sikhs, straight ritual lines radiating out from Cusco, their sacred center, each dotted with wakas, holy shrines, forming a kind of spiritual circuit board for an empire. The Hopi of North America speak of spirit roads, paths trodden by ancestors and gods alike, mapped through memory and myth. In Aboriginal Australia, songlines sprawl invisibly across the outback. Each one is a melody, a map, a living story that guides a traveller from watering hole to tree, from mountain to sky. They don't just describe the land, they are the land. And then there's us, the 21st century descendants of these ancient navigators, armed not with stars or stone, but with Google Maps and a lot of late night free time. Modern day leyline hunters are connecting everything. Stonehenge to the Pentagon, the Eiffel Tower to Area 51. There's even one that supposedly links all the Chick-fil-A locations in North America directly to the lost city of Atlantis. Wait, what? Atlantis and Chick-fil-A? Look, perhaps Atlantis and Chick-fil-A is where we should draw the line, no? Because the question isn't whether we can draw lines between things, it's whether those lines mean anything. And that brings us to the problem at the heart of it all. The human brain is astounding. So astounding, in fact, that it finds patterns even when they're not there. Armed with this knowledge, as we peel back the thin veneer of conspiracy, we instead find apophenia, the human tendency to perceive meaningful connections or patterns in random or unrelated events, objects, or data. Apophenia is why we see faces in clouds, why we hear messages when a record plays backwards, why ancient stargazers turned random dots into lions, bulls, and twins, why your friends tell you you should bet it all on black. It's also why people once believed Mars was covered in canals. Their minds wanted to see straight lines where none existed. And maybe, just maybe, it's also why we find ley lines running across the landscape. Not because they're really there, but because we want them to be. Mathematicians have been fascinated and a little amused by ley lines for decades. Because from a purely logical standpoint, these patterns, they're almost guaranteed to exist. One of the most illuminating demonstrations comes from Matt Parker, a stand-up comedian, math communicator, and academic at Queen Mary University of London. He posed a question: what happens if we take all the former Woolworths locations in the UK and plot them on a map? Would we find patterns? The answer, yes, absolutely. He drew lines between them. Not just one or two, but dozens, intersecting, parallel, diagonal, and shockingly, many forming perfect alignments. Were the Woolies secretly built on ancient dragon lines? Was St. Michael moonlighting as a retail consultant? No. But the joke revealed something important. Given enough points on a map, patterns are inevitable. This idea is backed by a branch of mathematics called Ramsey theory. In simple terms, it says in any large enough dataset, order will emerge whether it's real or not. If you throw darts at a map randomly and you throw enough of them, some will start to line up. Not because there's deeper meaning, but because statistical coincidence looks an awful lot like design. And humans are often quite predictable. Now consider Britain, a country bursting with thousands of ancient sites, stone circles, burial mounds, wells, churches, hill figures, crumbled towers, even pubs claiming to sit on ancient crossroads of power. If you let yourself pick and choose which sites to connect and ignore all the others, you're not discovering a sacred path. You're curating a story, confirming a bias, flattening the earth. And here's the real trap. The more meaning we crave, the more patterns we'll find. In a way, ley lines aren't about geography, they're about us, our need for connection, for order, for mystery, for the sense that the world isn't just chaos and randomness, but a sacred web with us at the center. And once we understand that, we can start to ask the real question. If the patterns aren't on the earth, then where are they? So are ley lines real? In the physical sense, magnetic fields, mystical energy highways, ancient GPS systems? Probably not. But that doesn't mean they're meaningless, because whether or not invisible forces run beneath our feet, there's something undeniably human about trying to connect the dots. We want to believe there's an order to things, that the places we build, the paths we walk, the stories we inherit are part of something bigger than ourselves. Maybe ley lines aren't evidence of ancient technology or angelic highways. Maybe they're mirrors. They reflect our longing, our curiosity, our belief that meaning can be mapped. And if you're honest, you've probably made your own ley lines too. Moments you've strung together to form a story. Connections that feel too perfect to be happenstance. A missed bus that led to a life-changing meeting. A song that played at just the right time. A dream you followed across years, across continents, across doubt. Maybe ley lines aren't out there in the soil or the stones. Maybe they live in the choices we make, the moments we connect, and the meaning we create as we go. Maybe the real ley lines were the friends we made along the way. Thanks for walking this path with us. If you enjoyed watching, please leave a like or even subscribe. It means so much to us. Until then, follow your own lines and see where they take you. Goodbye.